The espresso machine hissed behind me like an angry cat as I balanced 3 plates of tiramisu along my forearm. Friday night at Salvatore's was always chaos. A symphony of clinking glasses, murmured conversations, and the occasional burst of laughter from the corner booth where the big tippers sat. My feet ached in the mandatory black heels that added 3 inches to my height, but subtracted years from my life expectancy. 8 hours into my double shift, and I still had 3 more to go. "Emma, table 7's still waiting on their check," Marco, the floor manager, snapped as I passed. His breath reeked of cigarettes and cheap cologne. "On it," I muttered, though my to-do list was already impossibly long. Single mom waitresses don't get the luxury of excuses. I delivered the desserts with my practiced smile, the one that didn't quite reach my eyes but still earned decent tips. My daughter Lily's 5th birthday was next week, and every extra dollar meant I might actually be able to buy her that princess dress she'd been dreaming about. The one with the ridiculous amount of tulle and glitter that would inevitably end up all over our tiny apartment. "Can I get you anything else?" I asked the middle-aged couple, who barely looked up from their phones. "Just the check," the man replied without making eye contact. As I turned to retrieve their bill, the front door opened, sending a cool October breeze swirling through the restaurant. The ambient noise dimmed almost immediately, like someone had turned down the volume on a stereo. I felt it before I saw it, the shift in atmospheric pressure that meant someone important had entered. Marco straightened his posture so quickly I thought his spine might snap. The hostess, Gabriella, young and gorgeous with ambitions far beyond this place, smoothed her hair and hurried forward with a smile I'd never seen her use on regular customers. That's when I saw him. He entered like he owned the place, which rumors suggested he probably did. Tall and impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit that looked like it cost more than my monthly rent. He moved with the easy confidence of someone who never had to ask for anything twice. Dark hair, styled to perfect dishevelment, framed a face that belonged on a movie screen. All sharp angles and intensity. He couldn't have been older than 35. 2 men flanked him, their expressions impassive, eyes constantly scanning the room. Bodyguards. The larger one's jacket didn't quite conceal the bulge of what I was certain was a gun. "Mr. Castellano," Gabriella practically purred. "Your usual table is ready, Castellano." Even I knew that name, though I'd never seen the man in person. Vincent Castellano, the businessman whose various enterprises supposedly funded half the city's development projects. The businessman whose name mothers whispered when warning their daughters about dangerous men. The businessman whose photograph occasionally appeared in the society pages beside politicians and celebrities, but whose actual business no one could quite define. I forced myself to look away and focus on retrieving the check for table 7. Rich people made me nervous, especially rich people who entered rooms and silenced them with their mere presence. "Emma," Marco hissed as I passed, "take table 12. But I have 4 tables already and Daniela is up next in rotation. Take table 12. His eyes flicked meaningfully toward the corner where Gabriella was seating Castellano and his men. My stomach dropped. "Marco, please, do you want this job or not?" he whispered harshly, straightening his tie. "Mr. Castellano specifically requested our most experienced server." That was a lie. I'd worked at Salvatore's for 3 years, longer than anyone except Marco himself, but Castellano had never seen me before. More likely, Marco was sacrificing me because he knew I couldn't afford to quit. I took a deep breath, tucked a stray strand of blonde hair behind my ear, and approached the table. The 2 guards sat facing the entrance, while Castellano took the seat with his back to the wall, giving him a view of the entire restaurant. Smart. Paranoid, but smart. "Good evening, gentlemen. Welcome to Salvatore's. May I start you with something to drink?" My voice came out steadier than I expected. The bodyguards didn't acknowledge me, but Castellano looked up, his dark eyes capturing mine with an intensity that made my breath catch. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, perhaps, or curiosity. For a fleeting moment, I felt like I was being memorized. "McAllen. Neat." His voice was deeper than I'd anticipated, with the barest hint of an accent I couldn't place. "Of course. And for your companions?" "They don't drink on duty." His gaze never left my face, making me acutely aware of the smudge of mascara I probably had under my right eye and the faint scar on my chin from when I'd fallen off my bike at 12. I nodded and retreated to the bar, my heart hammering against my ribs. What was wrong with me? He was just another customer, a dangerous, powerful customer who could probably ruin my life with a phone call, but still, just a customer. The night progressed with a strange sort of tension. Every time I approached table 12, I felt Castellano's eyes tracking my movements. He ordered the osso buco, our most expensive dish, but barely touched it, instead nursing his scotch and occasionally murmuring something to his guards that made them nod curtly. By 11, the restaurant had emptied except for Castellano's table and a group of college students celebrating a birthday. I cleared dishes from a nearby table, trying not to look in his direction, when one of the college boys stumbled backward, bumping into me hard enough to send the stack of plates in my hands crashing to the floor. "Sorry," the boy slurred, not sounding sorry at all as his friends laughed. I knelt to gather the shards, my cheeks burning with embarrassment. Marco would dock my pay for the broken dishes, money I couldn't afford to lose. "Here." A voice above me made me start. One of Castellano's guards, the smaller one with a scar through his eyebrow, crouched beside me with a napkin full of broken ceramic. "Thank you," I whispered, surprised. He nodded and returned to his table where Castellano was signing the check, his expression unreadable. 15 minutes later, they left without further interaction, and I breathed a sigh of relief. The tension in my shoulders eased as I finished my closing duties, calculating how much I'd made in tips. Not enough, never enough, but better than yesterday. I was wiping down the last table when Marco approached, his expression unusually anxious. "He left this for you." He thrust an envelope into my hand. Inside was a $100 bill and a business card with just a phone number embossed in silver. No name, no company. "What the hell?" I murmured. Marco shrugged, looking both impressed and worried. "Consider yourself lucky. Or unlucky. I'm not sure which." I slipped the money and card into my pocket, unsure what to make of it. Rich men sometimes left big tips to impress their companions, but Castellano hadn't seemed like he was trying to impress anyone. By the time I left the restaurant, it was nearly midnight. The October air bit through my thin jacket as I hurried toward the bus stop, already calculating if I could catch the last bus, or if I'd have to splurge on a rideshare. Lily was staying overnight with my mother, which meant I didn't have to rush home for once, but I was bone-tired and wanted nothing more than my lumpy mattress and silence. The street was deserted except for a black SUV idling near the restaurant's service entrance. I quickened my pace, clutching my purse closer. "Miss!" The voice came from behind me, making me jump. I turned to find the bodyguard with the scarred eyebrow standing a few feet away, his hands visible at his sides in what I realized was a deliberately non-threatening posture. "Mr. Castellano would like to offer you a ride home." My throat went dry. "No, thank you. I'm fine with the bus. The last bus left 10 minutes ago." He was right, I realized with a sinking feeling. I'd lost track of time during closing. "I can call a rideshare. At the rate they're charging tonight, that would cost most of your tips." His expression remained neutral. "It's just a ride, no strings." I hesitated, weighing my options. A ride with a man whispered about as dangerous versus a 30-minute wait for an overpriced rideshare in the cold, followed by an almost empty late-night train where I'd been harassed more than once. "Fine," I finally said. "Just a ride." The SUV's back door opened as we approached, revealing Castellano sitting inside, his phone illuminating his sharp features in the darkness. He didn't look up as I slid in, keeping as much distance between us as the leather seat allowed. "Address?" he asked, still focused on his screen. I gave it to him, and he relayed it to the driver, who pulled away from the curb with smooth efficiency. We rode in silence for several blocks, the only sound the soft hum of the engine and the occasional ping from Castellano's phone. I stared out the window, watching my neighborhood grow progressively shabbier as we approached. "How long have you worked at Salvatore's?" His question startled me. 3 years. "You don't look old enough to have worked anywhere for 3 years." I bristled slightly. "I'm 27. That made him look up, a flicker of surprise crossing his features. "You have a child." It wasn't a question, which unnerved me. "How did you—" "The way you check your phone between tables, the faded sticker on its case." The fact that you count your tips 3 times before putting them in your pocket. His eyes, dark and penetrating, studied me with unnerving precision. Single mother, I'm guessing. My skin prickled. Is there something you want, Mr. Castellano? Because if this is some kind of proposition, you should know I'm not. That's not why you're here, he interrupted, his tone sharpening before smoothing out again. I'm merely curious. About a waitress? I doubt that. A small smile touched his lips but didn't reach his eyes. I'm curious about a woman who works at an Italian restaurant, yet doesn't know what the tattoo on her wrist means. And my hand automatically went to my wrist where a small, intricate symbol peeked out from under my sleeve, 3 interconnected circles with a dagger through them. It's my mother's tattoo. I got it when I turned 18. Your mother has this exact tattoo? Something in his voice had changed, a tension I couldn't identify. Yes. She's had it since before I was born. I always thought it was beautiful. I pulled my sleeve down self-consciously. What does it mean? Castellano was silent for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then the car stopped. We've arrived, he said softly. I looked out to see my apartment building, a shabby 5-story walk-up with peeling paint and security bars on the lower windows. Thank you for the ride, I said, reaching for the door handle. Emma. My name in his mouth sounded different, almost reverent. That symbol marks someone under the protection of the Castellano family. It has for generations. I froze, my hand on the door. What are you saying? I'm saying, he replied, his dark eyes holding mine, that either your mother once belonged to my family's organization or she was being protected by it. My mind raced, struggling to process his words. My mother, Patricia Bennett, was a kindergarten teacher who baked cookies for the PTA and cried at Hallmark commercials. She couldn't possibly have connections to someone like Vincent Castellano. You're mistaken, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I'm never mistaken about family matters. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a card, different from the one he'd left with the tip, this one bearing an embossed crest that matched my tattoo. Call this number tomorrow. Ask for me. I think we have much to discuss about your mother. I took the card with numb fingers, a chill running down my spine that had nothing to do with the October night. Good night, Emma Bennett, he said, as I stepped out of the car. Lock your door. The SUV pulled away, leaving me standing on the sidewalk, clutching a business card and feeling like my entire world had just tilted on its axis. How did he know my last name? I'd never told him. Sleep evaded me that night, my mind racing with Castellano's words. The tattoo on my wrist, a symbol I'd proudly worn for nearly a decade, now felt like a stranger's mark on my skin. I traced its lines in the dim glow of my bedside lamp, trying to reconcile the design with his claim. Protection of the Castellano family. The concept was absurd. By morning, exhaustion had settled into my bones, but answers hadn't come. I called my mother, waking her earlier than she'd appreciate on a Saturday. Emma, is everything okay? Is Lily all right? Sleep roughened her voice. Everything's fine, Mom. Lily's still asleep? I asked, guilt creeping in for alarming her, like an angel. We made cookies last night and she helped frost them all. Wore herself out completely. I smiled despite my unease. Mom, I need to ask you something. It's about your tattoo, the one I copied. Silence hummed across the line for several heartbeats. What about it? What does it mean? Where did you get it? Another pause. It's just a design I liked. Why the sudden interest? My mother had never been a good liar. Her voice always pitched slightly higher, words coming too quickly. Like now. Someone recognized it last night, said it was significant. Who? The sharpness in her tone startled me. A customer at the restaurant. He seemed to think it meant something. Emma. My mother's voice dropped to a whisper. Stay away from anyone who knows about that symbol. Please. Ice slid down my spine. Mom, what aren't you telling me? It's nothing for you to worry about. Ancient history. She forced brightness into her tone. When are you picking up Lily? I thought we might go to the park this afternoon if the weather holds. The abrupt subject change told me everything I needed to know. She was hiding something, but pushing her would only make her retreat further. I'll be there around 4, I conceded, knowing this wasn't a conversation for the phone. And Mom? I love you. I love you too, sweetheart, more than anything. After hanging up, I stared at Castellano's card on my nightstand. The embossed crest caught the morning light, making the dagger at its center gleam like a warning. I should throw it away, forget the strange encounter, and move on with my life. Instead, I picked up my phone and dialed. A woman answered on the second ring. Castellano residence. My stomach clenched. I need to speak with Vincent Castellano. Your name? Emma Bennett. One moment. The line went silent for nearly a minute. I almost hung up, convinced this was madness, when his voice filled my ear. Emma, I was hoping you'd call. Castellano sounded more relaxed than he had last night, almost pleased. You said we needed to talk about my mother. Not over the phone. The warmth in his tone cooled. Are you free this afternoon? I thought of my plans to pick up Lily. I have commitments until evening, 8 o'clock then. I'll send a car. It wasn't a question. No, I said firmly. I'll meet you somewhere public. A brief silence followed, and I wondered if I'd offended him. Then he chuckled, a low sound that sent an involuntary shiver through me. Cautious? Good. There's a cafe on Westmore and 9th. Luciana's. Does that work? I knew the place. Upscale but quiet, with enough patrons that I wouldn't feel isolated. Fine. 8 o'clock. Until tonight, Emma. The way he said my name made it sound like something precious. After retrieving Lily from my mother's, deliberately avoiding any mention of the tattoo or Castellano, I spent the afternoon trying to focus on my daughter's chatter about kindergarten and cookies, rather than the evening ahead. Lily's face lit up as she described the princess dress she hoped to get for her birthday, her small hands gesturing dramatically. And it has sparkles all over, Mom, like a million stars. I smiled, my heart aching with love for this tiny human who deserved so much more than I could give her. It sounds beautiful, sweetheart. Grandma says maybe Santa will bring it early, she confided, blue eyes, so like mine, wide with excitement. I made a mental note to thank my mother for managing Lily's expectations. The dress was still beyond my budget, even with last night's generous tip. At 7:30, I left Lily with Mrs. Abernathy from the apartment below us, a retired teacher who occasionally watched her when I worked evenings. I'd changed 3 times, finally settling on dark jeans and a sweater that wasn't too worn at the cuffs. Respectable, but not like I was trying to impress. Luciana's glowed with warm light when I arrived, exactly at 8. The cafe was busy but not crowded, soft jazz playing beneath the murmur of conversation. I spotted Castellano immediately, seated at a corner table with a clear view of both entrances. Alone. Surprisingly, he stood as I approached, pulling out a chair for me. Up close, in proper lighting, he was even more striking than I remembered. Dark eyes that missed nothing, features that might have been carved from marble. An aura of contained power that seemed to vibrate around him. You came, he said, as though he'd had doubts. You said it was about my mother. I settled into the chair, maintaining eye contact despite the nervous flutter in my stomach. A server materialized beside us. Castellano ordered espresso without looking at her. I asked for tea, needing something to hold. Your mother's name is Patricia Bennett, he began, once the server departed. Before that, she was Patricia Russo. I blinked in surprise. Russo was my grandmother's maiden name. He shook his head slightly. It was your mother's married name, briefly. My mother was never married before my father, I said automatically, then faltered at his steady gaze. She was married to Anthony Russo for approximately 7 months in 1996, just before she disappeared and resurfaced as Patricia Bennett in a different state. He slid a photograph across the table. With trembling fingers, I picked it up. A much younger version of my mother smiled at the camera, her arm around a handsome dark-haired man at what appeared to be a Christmas party. She wore a red dress and looked happier than I'd ever seen her. Who was he? My voice sounded distant to my own ears. My cousin. Castellano's face remained impassive, but something flickered in his eyes. He was killed in January 1997. The server returned with our drinks, creating a momentary reprieve from the conversation that had suddenly veered into territory that made my chest tight. I added sugar to my tea with unsteady hands, buying time. Why are you telling me this? I finally asked. Because I believe Patricia Russo fled after Anthony's murder, pregnant and terrified. His gaze dropped pointedly to my face. You were born in October 1997, correct? My cup clattered against its saucer. What exactly are you suggesting? I think you know, Emma. His voice softened. Anthony Russo was my favorite cousin. More like a brother to me. We grew up together. The implication hung in the air between us. Impossible, yet suddenly. Terrifyingly plausible. My mother's refusal to discuss my biological father, the mysterious tattoo, the way she'd sometimes look at me with a shadow of sadness crossing her features when she thought I wouldn't notice. This is insane, I whispered. My father was David Bennett. He left when I was 3. Did you ever see pictures of him? Birth certificate with his name? Castellano pressed gently. I hadn't. There were no photos of my supposed father in our home. No evidence he'd ever existed beyond my mother's vague stories. Why would my mother lie about something like that? To protect you. He leaned forward. Anthony's death wasn't an accident. It was a message from a rival family. If they had known he had a child, he left the sentence unfinished, but I felt the weight of its implication. And the tattoo? When someone marries into the Castellano family, they receive protection for life. The mark ensures that everyone in our circle knows they're untouchable. His eyes flicked to my wrist. Your mother kept it, even after she fled. Smart. Even if she was found, no one would dare harm her. I shook my head, overwhelmed. Even if what you're saying is true, and I'm not saying I believe it, why tell me now? Why not leave us alone? Because the past has a way of resurfacing, Emma. His expression darkened. The man who ordered Anthony's death died last month. His son has taken over, and he's been systematically targeting anyone connected to our family. I've been moving protected individuals to safer locations, but your mother wasn't on my list because officially, Patricia Russo died 28 years ago. Fear constricted my throat. Are you saying my mother is in danger? I'm saying both of you might be, if this connection is discovered by the wrong people. He reached across the table, his hand stopping just short of mine. The tattoo you chose to copy could put a target on your back. I pulled my sleeve down instinctively. This is crazy. We're nobody. Just a kindergarten teacher and a waitress. You're Anthony's daughter. Something possessive flashed in his eyes. Which makes you Castellano blood. Family. The word hung between us, laden with meaning I couldn't fully grasp. Family to Vincent Castellano clearly meant something very different than it did to most people. What do you want from me? I asked, suddenly exhausted. I want to offer you protection. Real protection, not just a symbol. He produced a key from his pocket, sliding it across the table. This opens an apartment in a secure building I own. You and your daughter should move there, at least temporarily. I didn't touch the key. You expect me to just uproot my life based on a story that sounds like something from a crime novel? I expect you to consider your daughter's safety. His tone remained even, but his eyes hardened. Call your mother. Ask her about Anthony Russo. See what her reaction tells you. Before I could respond, one of his guards, the one with the scarred eyebrow from last night, appeared at our table, leaning down to whisper something in Castellano's ear. His expression shifted subtly, jaw tightening. I have to go. He stood abruptly, dropping cash on the table. Think about what I've said, Emma. The key is yours, whether you believe me or not. He paused, something almost gentle crossing his face. You have his eyes, you know, Anthony's. Same shade of blue. Then he was gone, moving through the cafe with fluid purpose, leaving me with a key, a photograph, and questions that threatened to unravel everything I thought I knew about myself. I returned home in a daze, the key burning in my pocket like a hot coal. Mrs. Abernathy reported that Lily had fallen asleep an hour earlier. Exhausted from her day with my mother, I thanked her, waiting until she left before sinking onto our worn couch, the photograph of my mother and Anthony Russo clutched in my hands. They looked happy, these strangers who might be my parents. My mother's smile was uninhibited in a way I'd rarely witnessed. She'd always carried a certain guardedness, a wariness I'd attributed to the hardships of single motherhood. But maybe it was something else entirely. Fear. Secrets. A past reinvented. With shaking hands, I dialed her number. Emma? She answered quickly, concern evident. Everything okay? I need to ask you something, and I need the truth. I took a deep breath. Who was Anthony Russo? The silence that followed was so complete I thought she'd hung up. Then I heard her exhale shakily. Where did you hear that name? Her voice had dropped to a whisper. It doesn't matter. Who was he, Mom? Another long pause. Someone I knew a lifetime ago. Was he my father? A soft, broken sound came through the line. Half sob, half laugh. How did you find out? After all these years. My grip tightened on the phone. I met Vincent Castellano. Oh, God. Real fear colored her voice now. Emma, listen to me. Stay away from him. From all of them. You don't understand what they are, what they do. Then tell me, I snapped, louder than intended. I glanced toward Lily's room, lowering my voice. Tell me why my entire life has been built on lies. Tell me why you never mentioned that my father was murdered, or that he was part of... I hesitated, not even sure what to call it. La Familia, my mother supplied softly. The family. That's what they call themselves, as though it somehow sanctifies what they do. She sighed heavily. I loved Anthony. That part was real. He was kind, charming. He promised me a normal life away from his family's business, but there is no away with them. It follows like a shadow. What happened to him? A rival family had him killed. A warning to Vincent, who was rising quickly within the organization. Her voice caught. I was pregnant with you. When I heard what happened, I ran. Vincent's father helped me disappear, gave me a new identity, money to start over, made me promise never to return or contact anyone from that life. But you kept the tattoo, I said, recalling Castellano's words. Protection, she admitted, just in case. I never thought you would copy it, never imagined you'd somehow cross paths with them. My head spun with revelations. Castellano says we might be in danger, that whoever killed Anthony might come after us. What? Why now? Panic edged her voice. Something about the original boss dying. His son taking over. I rubbed my temples, a headache building. He gave me a key to an apartment, said we should move there. He wants to control you, my mother said flatly. That's what Vincent does. Collects people, binds them to him with protection and obligation until they can't function without him. I've spent your entire life keeping you from that world. He says I'm family, Castellano blood. And in his mind, that gives him ownership. Her voice hardened. Emma, listen to me. Take Lily and come here tonight. We'll figure this out together. I hesitated, remembering the intensity in Castellano's eyes when he mentioned Lily's safety. I'll come tomorrow morning. I need time to think. We said goodbye, and I sat in the darkened living room, the photograph still in my hand. My father had died before I was born, murdered by people who might now be looking for me. It seemed impossible, like something from a movie rather than my unremarkable life. I checked on Lily, watching her sleep peacefully, blissfully unaware that her world might be crumbling. She looked angelic with her blonde curls spread across the pillow, small hands clutching her favorite stuffed rabbit. I'd do anything to protect her. Wasn't that what my mother had done for me? A soft knock at the door startled me from my thoughts. I froze, suddenly aware of how vulnerable we were. It was nearly midnight. No one visited at this hour. The knock came again, more insistent. I crept to the door, looking through the peephole. The bodyguard with the scarred eyebrow stood outside, his expression urgent. I opened the door a crack, keeping the chain in place. Mr. Castellano sent me, he said quietly. You need to come with me now, both of you. Why? What's happened? Someone accessed old Russo family records today. Your mother's original death certificate was flagged as potentially fraudulent. His voice remained low, tense. We have reason to believe you've been located. My blood turned to ice. How would anyone connect that to me? Your employment records at Salvatore's. Impatience colored his tone. The restaurant is owned by a shell company connected to Castellano interests. That's why Mr. Castellano was there last night. Routine inspection. When he saw your tattoo, he had your background checked. If he could make that connection, others can too. I glanced back at Lily's room. I can't just leave in the middle of the night. You have 5 minutes to pack essentials. Nothing more. His hand moved subtly, revealing the gun holstered beneath his jacket. Mr. Castellano's orders are to bring you to safety, with or without your cooperation. Anger flared through my fear. Is that a threat? It's protection, he countered, expression softening marginally. There are 2 men watching your building from a car across the street. They aren't ours. I wanted to dismiss his claims, to shut the door and return to my life as just Emma Bennett, waitress and mother. But the photograph in my hand told a different story. One where I was the daughter of a man whose death had been a message, whose blood might now put my own child at risk. 3 minutes, I conceded, closing the door to remove the chain. I moved with quiet efficiency, throwing clothes for Lily and me into a duffel bag, grabbing her rabbit and her favorite blanket, toiletries, my wallet, phone charger, the photograph. As an afterthought, I took the key Castellano had given me, though I doubted we were heading to the apartment it opened. When I woke Lily, she grumbled sleepily. Is it morning? No, sweetie. We're going on a little trip. I kept my voice light, though my heart hammered against my ribs. Remember how we talked about adventures sometimes happening at night? She nodded drowsily, allowing me to bundle her into her coat. I carried her with one arm, the duffel bag slung over my opposite shoulder. The bodyguard, who still hadn't offered his name, took the bag from me wordlessly as we slipped into the hallway. Back exit, he murmured, guiding us toward the service stairs rather than the main entrance. A black SUV, identical to the one from last night, idled in the alley behind my building. The driver's window lowered slightly as we approached, and I caught a glimpse of the other bodyguard from the restaurant. He nodded once, and the back door opened. Vincent Castellano sat inside, his expression grave. Quickly, was all he said. I climbed in with Lily, who had fallen back asleep against my shoulder, oblivious to the tension surrounding us. The scarred bodyguard took the passenger seat, and we pulled away, driving through back streets rather than main roads. Where are you taking us? I whispered, not wanting to wake Lily. Somewhere safe, Castellano replied, his eyes on my daughter. Something shifted in his expression as he looked at her, a softening, almost wistful. She looks like you. Everyone says she looks like my mother. Same difference. His gaze returned to mine. She has the Russo chin, though, strong. I adjusted Lily's position, creating a slight barrier between her and Castellano with my body. He noticed, a faint smile touching his lips. I'm not the threat, Emma. So you keep saying, yet here I am, essentially kidnapped in the middle of the night. His jaw tightened. Would you prefer I left you there for Donato's men to find? Perhaps you'd like to explain to your daughter why strangers are asking about her grandmother's past, about a father she never knew existed? Stop, I hissed, glancing at Lily to ensure she was still asleep. We drove in tense silence for nearly half an hour, leaving the city behind for winding roads that led into the wooded hills overlooking the coastline. Eventually, we turned onto a private drive, approaching a large modern house built into the hillside, its wide windows overlooking the distant ocean. Welcome to my home, Castellano said as the SUV stopped at the entrance. Your home? I hadn't expected that. I thought you were taking us to the apartment. This is more secure. He exited the vehicle, then held his arms out. Let me take her while you get out. I hesitated, instinctively protective. She's exhausted, and you're exhausted, he said softly. Let me help. Something in his tone, a gentleness I hadn't heard before, made me relent. I carefully transferred Lily to his arms, watching as he cradled her with surprising tenderness, her head nestling against his shoulder as though she belonged there. The sight created a confusing mix of emotions. Alarm at seeing my child in the arms of a man whose world represented everything I feared, yet an inexplicable sense that he would sooner die than let harm come to her. Inside, the house was minimalist but luxurious, with open spaces and carefully selected art pieces. Castellano carried Lily up a floating staircase to a guest bedroom, where he laid her gently on a bed that dwarfed her small form. I had my housekeeper prepare this room when you called earlier, he explained, stepping back as I removed Lily's shoes and tucked her beneath the plush comforter. The connecting door leads to your room. I smoothed Lily's curls, placing her rabbit beside her. When I turned, I found Castellano watching us with an unreadable expression. Why are you doing this? I asked once we'd stepped into the hallway. closing Lily's door partway. I told you. Your family. I'm a stranger with a dubious connection to your dead cousin. That doesn't explain this. I gestured vaguely at the house, the protection, the middle-of-the-night rescue. Castellano was quiet for a moment, his dark eyes studying me with that same intensity I'd felt at the restaurant. When Anthony died, I lost the only person who truly knew me. Not the version of me that everyone fears or wants something from, but me. His voice held a note of something that might have been vulnerability. For 28 years, I thought every trace of him was gone. Then you said those words in the restaurant, about your mother having the same tattoo, and suddenly, there you were, his eyes looking back at me. I'm not him, I said softly. No. A sad smile crossed his face. But you're a part of him that survived, the best part maybe. He stepped back. Get some rest, Emma. We'll talk more tomorrow. As he turned to leave, I called after him. The men watching my apartment. What will they do when they realize we're gone? Castellano paused, his back to me. They'll report to their boss that the apartment is empty. By morning, there will be no trace of Emma Bennett or her daughter at that address. Your belongings will be moved to storage. Your landlord will receive 6 months' rent to forget you existed, and your employment at Salvatore's will be formally terminated with excellent references. You're erasing us, I whispered, the reality of what was happening finally sinking in. He looked back at me, his expression grave. I'm protecting you the only way I know how. The question is, will you let me? I had no answer as he disappeared down the hallway, leaving me alone with the weight of choices I never asked to make, and a heritage I never knew I carried. Morning arrived in streams of golden light through unfamiliar windows. For a moment, I couldn't place where I was. The sheets were too soft, the silence too complete. Then the previous night's events crashed over me like a wave. Lily was already awake when I entered her room, exploring the space with wide-eyed curiosity. She'd found a shelf with children's books, and had several spread around her on the plush carpet. "Mommy, whose house is this?" she asked, looking up at me with innocent excitement. "It's like a princess castle," I forced a smile. "It belongs to a friend who's helping us. Did you sleep okay?" She nodded enthusiastically. "The bed is bouncy and look." She pointed to the windows that stretched from floor to ceiling. "You can see the whole ocean." I crossed to the window, taking in the breathtaking view of coastline stretching into the distance, sunlight glittering on the water. It was beautiful, peaceful, and a world away from our cramped apartment with its view of the neighboring building's brick wall. "Mom, I'm hungry," Lily announced, abandoning the books to tug at my hand. We ventured downstairs together, following the scent of coffee. The kitchen was a chef's dream, all gleaming surfaces and professional-grade appliances. A dark-haired woman in her 50s stood at the counter, arranging pastries on a platter. She looked up as we entered, her expression warming. "Good morning. You must be Emma and Lily. I'm Sophia, Mr. Castellano's housekeeper." Her accent was distinctly Italian, her manner motherly. "Breakfast is ready. The little one likes pancakes?" "I made Mickey Mouse shapes." Lily gasped in delight, any lingering sleepiness vanishing as she clambered onto a stool at the kitchen island. "That's very kind, thank you," I said, somewhat disoriented by the normalcy of the scene. "Is Mr. Castellano here? He left early for business, but said to make yourselves at home." Sophia placed a plate of whimsical pancakes before Lily, who dug in immediately. "He also asked me to give you this." She handed me an envelope containing a note in elegant handwriting. "Emma, business requires my attention until this evening. Sophia will help with anything you need. There are clothes for both of you in the closets. The house and grounds are secure. Feel free to explore, but please don't leave the property. My men are stationed at the gate and perimeter. I've contacted your mother. She's safe and has agreed to meet us here tonight at 7 V. I read it twice, unsure whether to be relieved or unnerved that he'd contacted my mother without consulting me. At least she was safe. "He arranged for some clothes," Sophia explained, gesturing to my wrinkled outfit from yesterday. "Nothing fancy, but comfortable things for you both, and swimsuits. The pool is heated if you want to swim." Lily's head snapped up, syrup dripping from her chin. "A pool? Can we go swimming, Mommy? Please? Looking at her eager face, I couldn't deny her this small joy amid all the upheaval. After breakfast. And only if Sophia doesn't mind showing us where it is. Sophia beamed. Of course not. I'll find towels while you eat. The day passed in a surreal haze. Lily splashed happily in the pool while I sat nearby, trying to process everything that had happened. The house was undeniably beautiful, perched on the hillside with panoramic views and every luxury imaginable, but it felt like a gilded cage. Castellano's men patrolled the perimeter discreetly, visible only occasionally through the trees. In the afternoon, we explored the grounds, manicured gardens giving way to more natural landscaping as the property sloped toward the sea. Lily collected pine cones and pretty stones, delighted by a freedom of space she'd never experienced in our urban life. Mom, look! She pointed to a small gazebo nestled among flowering shrubs. It's like a fairy house. We sat in the gazebo as the afternoon sun began its descent, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. Lily curled against my side, suddenly pensive. Are we on vacation? She asked, her small fingers playing with the hem of the new sundress Sophia had found for her. I hesitated, unsure how to explain our situation to a 5-year-old. Sort of. We're staying here while I figure some things out. Is it because of the bad men? My blood froze. What bad men, sweetheart? The ones watching our house. She said it matter-of-factly, as though discussing the weather. I saw them when I got up to get water last night. They were sitting in a car across the street looking at our windows. I pulled her closer, disturbed that she'd noticed what I'd been oblivious to. How do you know they were bad? She shrugged. They looked scary. And then the nice man with the funny eyebrow came and took us away. The nice man? I echoed, realizing she meant Castellano's scarred bodyguard. He had a gun, Lily whispered, eyes wide. I saw it when he helped me with my coat, but he's a good guy, right? Like in my superhero books, I swallowed hard. Life isn't always as simple as good guys and bad guys, Lily. Mr. Vincent is a good guy, though. She stated this with absolute certainty. He carried me like Daddy Bear carries Baby Bear in my story. Before I could respond to this unsettling assessment, Sophia's voice called from the house that dinner was ready. We headed back, Lily running ahead while I followed more slowly, troubled by her observations. Children sometimes saw truth more clearly than adults, uncluttered by preconceptions. But in this case, I wasn't sure what the truth was. Dinner was a quiet affair, just Lily and me in the enormous dining room. Sophia had prepared a feast, homemade pasta, roasted vegetables, fresh bread, far more than we could eat. Lily chatted happily about the pool and the gardens, seemingly untroubled by our sudden relocation. As Sophia cleared our plates, she mentioned that my mother would arrive soon. Mr. Castellano asked me to show you to the library to wait. He'll join you there when he returns. The library was exactly as I'd expect from someone like Castellano. Walls of leather-bound books, a massive desk of polished wood, and deep armchairs arranged near a fireplace where flames crackled softly. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered the same spectacular view as elsewhere in the house, now darkened to a canvas of twinkling lights from distant boats on the water. Lily, full and tired from our day of exploration, curled up in one of the armchairs with a picture book Sophia had provided. Within minutes, she was asleep. The book sliding from her small fingers, I was gazing out at the night when I heard the library door open. Turning, I found my mother standing there, her face a mask of worry that melted into relief when she saw me. Emma. She crossed the room and pulled me into a fierce hug. Are you all right? Is Lily? We're fine, I assured her, returning the embrace before pulling back to study her face. Mom, why didn't you ever tell me about Anthony? About any of this? She sank into the nearest chair, suddenly looking older than her 53 years. I was trying to protect you from a world that destroyed the man I loved. A world where loyalty is measured in blood and violence is a business transaction. Her eyes drifted to Lily's sleeping form. I wanted something different for you. For her. You still should have told me. Would it have changed anything? She challenged softly. Would knowing your father was murdered by a rival crime family have made your childhood happier? Would carrying the Russo name have made your life better? Before I could answer, the door opened again. Vincent Castellano entered, his suit impeccable despite the late hour. Though fatigue shadowed his eyes, he paused when he saw my mother, something complicated passing across his features. "Patricia," he said quietly. "It's been a long time." My mother stood, her posture stiffening. "Not long enough, Vincent." An awkward silence stretched between them, loaded with history I couldn't begin to understand. "Thank you for coming," he finally said, his tone formal. "I know you'd rather be anywhere else." "I came for my daughter and granddaughter," she replied coolly. "Not for you." I moved to stand between them, uncomfortable with the tension. "Can someone please explain what's happening? Why we had to leave in the middle of the night? Who those men were?" Castellano glanced at Lily, still sleeping peacefully in the oversized chair. Perhaps somewhere more private. We followed him to an adjoining study, leaving the door cracked to keep Lily in view. He poured 3 glasses of amber liquid from a crystal decanter, offering them wordlessly. My mother declined. I accepted mine and took a fortifying sip, the whiskey burning a path down my throat. "Marco Donato took over his father's organization last month," Castellano began without preamble. "His first move was to void all old truces and alliances. His second was to compile a list of outstanding debts he believes are owed to his family." "What does that have to do with us?" I asked. "Anthony's death was never avenged," my mother answered, before Castellano could, her voice hollow. "In their world, that's a debt unpaid." Castellano nodded grimly. "Donato's father was more practical. He understood that some conflicts are better left buried. The son is ideological. He sees his father's unfinished business as a stain on their honor, so he's hunting down everyone connected to old grudges," I said slowly, the horror of it dawning on me, "including Anthony Russo's widow and child." "Yes." Castellano's expression darkened. "When I recognized your tattoo, I had you investigated immediately. Finding out Anthony had a daughter." He broke off, something raw flashing across his face. "I should have anticipated Donato would make the same connection once he started digging into old records." "Those men watching our apartment," I whispered. "They would have taken you to Donato," he confirmed, "and used you to draw out your mother." My mother made a small, pained sound. "This is why I ran, why I've spent 28 years looking over my shoulder." She turned to me, eyes bright with unshed tears. "I'm so sorry, Emma. I never thought my past would find you." I looked between them. My mother, who had built an entirely new life to protect me, and Castellano, who had uprooted us from that life for the same reason, both claiming to want my safety, yet fundamentally opposed in their methods. "What happens now?" I asked, directing the question at both of them. "You stay here under my protection until I resolve the Donato situation," Castellano stated firmly. My mother scoffed. "Resolve it how, Vincent? The same way your family resolves all its problems?" His jaw tightened. "By whatever means necessary to keep them safe." "And then what?" she pressed. "Emma and Lily become part of your world? Another generation pulled into the family business? That's not what I want," he said, his voice suddenly quieter. "What do you want then?" I interjected, tired of them talking about me as though I weren't present. Castellano's dark eyes found mine, intense and unreadable. "I want to give you the protection Anthony would have provided. I want your daughter to grow up without looking over her shoulder. I want—" He stopped, seeming almost surprised by his own vehemence. In the silence that followed, the study door swung wider, and a small voice asked sleepily, "Mommy?" Lily stood in the doorway, rubbing her eyes, her blonde curls mussed from sleep. 3 pairs of eyes turned to her, the living embodiment of everything at stake. "Grandma!" Lily's face brightened when she spotted my mother. She ran across the room, throwing herself into waiting arms. "Hello, my sweet girl," my mother murmured, hugging her tightly. "I missed you today. We went swimming in a big pool," Lily announced, suddenly wide awake, "and I saw the ocean, and there's a fairy house in the garden." My mother smiled, though it didn't reach her eyes. "That sounds wonderful." Lily turned, noticing Castellano watching her with that same unreadable expression. Instead of shrinking away as she typically did with strangers, she met his gaze directly. "Are you Mr. Vincent? Sophia said you own this whole mountain." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Just this part of it. And yes, I'm Vincent. Lily nodded solemnly, as though confirming something important. Thank you for letting us stay in your castle. You're very welcome, Miss Lily. His tone softened when addressing her, losing its customary edge. It's past your bedtime, sweetheart, I interjected, uncomfortable with the strange tableau before me. Let's get you back to sleep. Castellano straightened. Sophia prepared the blue room for your mother, across the hall from yours. He hesitated, then added, We can continue our discussion tomorrow. You should rest. It wasn't until Lily was tucked into bed again, and my mother had retired to her room, that I realized how exhausted I was. Emotionally and physically drained, I stood at the window of my borrowed bedroom, staring out at the moonlight silvering the distant water. A soft knock at my door startled me. Castellano stood in the hallway, his suit jacket gone, tie loosened, looking more human than I'd yet seen him. May I speak with you a moment? He asked, his voice low to avoid waking Lily. I hesitated, then stepped into the hallway, pulling the door nearly closed behind me. What is it? Walk with me, he said, nodding toward the stairs. Curiosity overcame my better judgment, and I followed him down to the first floor and out onto a stone terrace overlooking the nighttime landscape. The air was cool but not cold, fragrant with jasmine from climbing vines along the balustrade. Castellano leaned against the stone railing, looking out at the view rather than at me. I owe you an explanation and an apology. For which part? I asked, keeping a careful distance between us. For disrupting your life, for bringing the past back to your doorstep. He sighed, running a hand through his dark hair in a surprisingly human gesture. I've spent years looking for Anthony's killer. When I finally had proof it was Donato Sr., he died before I could act. The son was supposed to be different, Harvard-educated, more businessman than gangster. I underestimated how deeply tradition runs. My mother thinks you want to pull us into your world, I said quietly. That this protection comes with strings. He turned to face me then, his expression more open than I'd seen it. Your mother has good reason to be suspicious of me, of all of us. What she experienced, it would make anyone run and never look back. What happened? Really? Castellano was quiet for a long moment, as though weighing how much to reveal. Anthony was my father's right hand, but he wanted out. He'd met your mother, fallen in love, started dreaming of a different life. My father agreed to let him step back, unusual in our world, but Anthony was family, not just an associate. His jaw tightened. 2 weeks later, he was shot while leaving a restaurant. Your mother was with him. I gasped softly, imagining my mother witnessing such violence. She was hysterical, covered in his blood. My father brought her to our house, where we discovered she was pregnant. He met my eyes. She begged him to let her disappear. Said she couldn't bring a child into this life. Couldn't bear to raise Anthony's baby surrounded by the people who failed to protect him. And your father agreed? A shadow crossed his face. He was complicated. Ruthless in business, but sentimental about family. He arranged everything. New identity, relocation, enough money to start over. Made everyone who knew about the pregnancy swear to secrecy, including you, I said, understanding dawning. You knew about me all along. I knew Anthony's child existed somewhere. I didn't know you were a daughter, or where you'd been taken, or what name you'd been given. My father took those secrets to his grave 3 years ago. His hands gripped the stone railing. When I saw your tattoo, recognized those eyes, it was like seeing a ghost. I processed his words slowly, piecing together a past I'd never known existed. If you've protected us by keeping silent all these years, why expose us now? Why not just keep watching from a distance? Because Donato wouldn't have stopped looking once he started. Because I couldn't risk him finding you first. Something fierce flashed in his eyes. Because you're Anthony's daughter, which makes your safety my responsibility. And after this Donato situation is resolved, what then? Do we go back to our normal lives? Castellano was quiet for a beat too long. If that's what you want. But it's not what you want, I guessed, studying his face in the moonlight. He pushed away from the railing, pacing a few steps before stopping, hands shoved in his pockets. What I want hasn't mattered in a very long time, Emma. Tell me anyway. His dark eyes found mine, their intensity making my breath catch. I want to know you, the person Anthony's daughter grew up to be. I want your daughter to have opportunities my resources can provide. He broke off, frustration evident in the tightness around his mouth. You want family, I finished softly, understanding with sudden clarity. The connection to Anthony you thought was lost. Something vulnerable flickered across his face before he mastered it. My world is solitary. People fear me, obey me, want things from me. Few know me. And you think I would? Know you, I mean? You see me differently, he said simply. You look at me and don't see what everyone else sees. What do I see? I asked, genuinely curious. A sad smile touched his mouth. Just a man. Not Vincent Castellano, capo di tutti capi, just Vincent. The rawness in his voice caught me off guard. Beneath the power and danger, there was a profound loneliness that resonated with something in me. The part that had always felt I was missing pieces of myself, missing knowledge of where I came from. I can't be what you want, I said gently. I can't replace what you lost when Anthony died. I'm not asking you to. He stepped closer, close enough that I could see the flecks of amber in his dark eyes. I'm asking for a chance to be part of your life, in whatever way you'll allow. No expectations, no demands. Just protection, I said skeptically. Protection is non-negotiable, he replied, a hint of steel returning to his voice. But it doesn't have to come with strings. The apartment key I gave you, it's yours regardless. A place to live, better schools for Lily, a fresh start. Whether you want me in your life or not. I searched his face, looking for deception, but finding only sincerity. Why would you do that? Because it's what Anthony would have wanted for his daughter. His voice softened. And because I've spent 20 years taking lives and building power, when maybe I should have been building something else entirely. Before I could respond, a commotion from inside the house drew our attention. Footsteps approached rapidly, and the scarred bodyguard appeared at the terrace doors, his expression tense. Boss, we've got movement at the north perimeter. 3 vehicles, no headlights. Castellano transformed instantly, all vulnerability vanishing behind a mask of cold efficiency. Get Patricia and the child to the safe room. Now. What's happening? I asked, fear clutching at my throat. Donato, Castellano said grimly, already moving toward the house. He found us sooner than expected. The next minutes passed in a blur. The scarred bodyguard, whose name I learned was Russo like my father, escorted me upstairs where my mother was already awake, clutching a sleeping Lily wrapped in her blanket. This way, he urged, leading us through a hidden door in the hallway linen closet that opened to reveal a narrow staircase. Where's Vincent? I asked, following close behind my mother. Doing what he does best, Russo replied cryptically. The safe room was underground, a concrete bunker with monitors showing security feeds from around the property. I watched in horror as black-clad figures moved stealthily through the gardens where Lily and I had played just hours earlier. They carried weapons. Professional, military-grade rifles. Are those really Donato's men? I whispered, clutching Lily closer as she slept on, mercifully unaware. Yes, my mother answered, her face pale. I recognize the formation. They're here to kill us, Emma. All of us. Russo handed each of us a bottle of water, his expression grim but composed. They won't succeed. On the monitors, I saw Castellano conferring with his men. At least a dozen of them, more than I'd realized, were stationed on the property. He moved with calm authority, positioning them strategically throughout the house and grounds. Then he drew a gun from beneath his jacket, checking it with practiced efficiency. He's going to fight them himself? I asked, disbelief coloring my voice. Of course, Russo said, as though it were obvious. Your family. He protects what's his. We watched in tense silence as the invaders breached the outer perimeter. The first shots were fired, muffled pops that barely reached our underground sanctuary. On the screens, chaos erupted. Muzzle flashes illuminated the darkness, figures falling, others advancing. I couldn't look away, horrified yet mesmerized by the violent ballet playing out above us. Through it all, Castellano moved with deadly precision, every movement deliberate and lethal. This was the man the world feared, I realized. Not the vulnerable figure who'd stood with me on the moonlit terrace minutes earlier. When a bullet grazed his arm, tearing his shirt and drawing blood, I gasped aloud. He barely seemed to notice, continuing to advance on a man I somehow knew must be Marco Donato himself, younger than Castellano, moving with less discipline but equal determination. Their confrontation was brief but brutal. When it ended, Donato lay motionless on the ground where my daughter had collected pine cones that afternoon. The fighting ceased as suddenly as it had begun. Russo received a message through his earpiece, nodded once, and opened the safe room door. "It's over. They want you upstairs." In the library, Castellano stood with his back to us as we entered, looking out at the night, his posture rigid. He'd changed his bloodied shirt for a fresh one, but otherwise showed no sign of the violence that had just occurred. "Is he dead?" my mother asked, her voice steady. "Donato?" "No." Castellano turned, his expression remote. "He's on his way to a place where he'll reconsider his priorities. His father's old consigliere has agreed to assume temporary leadership of their organization until more permanent arrangements can be made." The clinical way he discussed what had just happened sent a chill through me. This was his world. Violence and power plays. Life and death decisions made in the space of minutes. "It's over then?" I asked, still holding Lily, who had miraculously slept through everything. Something in his eyes softened when they fell on my sleeping daughter. "Yes. You're safe now. Truly safe. Donato will never threaten you again." "And the price for that safety?" my mother pressed. Castellano met her gaze steadily. "Already paid, Patricia, 28 years ago by Anthony, and tonight by me." He turned to me. "The apartment is still yours if you want it. No conditions, no expectations. Just a gift from your father's family." "And you?" I asked quietly. "Where do you fit into our lives going forward?" A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "That's entirely up to you. I meant what I said on the terrace. I'm asking for a chance, nothing more." I looked down at my sleeping daughter, then at my mother, whose expression had softened almost imperceptibly. The world I'd known had shattered, but in its place was something new. A history I'd never known I had. A future with possibilities I'd never imagined. "We'll start with Sunday dinners," I said finally. "Once a month. We can build from there." The smile that transformed Castellano's face made him look younger, more like the cousin my father must have loved as a brother. "Sunday dinners," he agreed softly. "I'll have Sophia make something special." As dawn broke over the ocean, painting the sky in hues of rose and gold, I stood with my daughter in my arms, my mother at my side, and a man who had killed for us hours earlier looking at me with something like hope in his eyes. I didn't know what the future held, but for the first time, I felt the strength of knowing exactly who I was, Emma Russo Bennett.